Hello and welcome. I am Scarperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We're the level 14 Dominator, Mister Eclipse, who has 2,889 XP to go to get to level 15. And we just talked to Richard Jones, who said excellent work in taking out Masamoto's organization. And now we have to meet his boss, who I guess will praise us. Don't know. So as we go, what I want to do is talk about a video that I just watched that was called something like how to be a top, 2 things that you need to be a top DM. We're going to talk about it in the context of GMing, not DMing, because I don't play D&D anymore. And most of what the person talked about was generic GMing stuff. It's not specific to Dungeons and Dragons, right? So it's not what you need to be good at running D&D, it's what you need to be good at being a GM. So 2 things he said that you need to be a top GM. But before we talk about the 2 things, what I do want to talk about is this concept, right, of being a top GM. Let's go into stealth mode. Guys, you don't need to be a top GM. You don't, right? You just need to be a good GM for your group. These guys not care about me. Oh, there's probably going to be an ambush, so we may as well take the stealth off. What's going on here? Oh, talk to him. The waypoints in these missions are a little weird. Vengeance and justice, if you please. Justice is given, vengeance is earned. There is a dog in the next room. Your eyes, he may appear to be a man, but in your heart you will see him as an animal. I say this because he's an honorless dog that betrayed and killed Tatsuri. What do you want me to do? Show vengeance. Okay. Beat Masamoto senseless. Didn't we already fight him? Okay, let's put this back on. So I think the first and most important thing to note is that you really don't need to worry about being a top GM. You're not here to be, or shouldn't be here to be, the next Matt Mercer or Jordan Caves Calliran or Brendan Lee Mulligan or Dungeon Dudes or whatever, like Steve Glicker. You're not what's his name from Dungeon, from the DM layer, Luke Hart. You're not competing with them. Your players probably don't care about them. And the whole purpose of GMing is to make it fun for your group. So you want to be a good GM for your group, not a top GM, right? This isn't about being like some guy on the internet who gets thousands of likes and views and all of that. If you want to do that, that's totally different. But being a top GM shouldn't be your priority, right? Your priority, to me, should be being a good GM for your group. There is no question that the way I run a game would not be interesting for other people on the internet to watch, which, among other reasons, is one reason why I have never tried to record our games and post them to the internet. Quite apart from the fact that I know at least one and possibly several of my players would not appreciate it. But even if they were all in on that, or they didn't care, or if I felt like secretly recording them and then secretly posting it to the internet, figuring they'll never find this channel, right? Even if that were true, I still wouldn't do it because I don't think it would be interesting to watch the way I run a game. It's very rules heavy because my group likes that. We use gridded combat. We stop and discuss the rules because we want to make sure we're getting things right, which isn't exciting to watch. Nobody does voice acting. Frequently, we summarize our role play, right? Just make a networking roll. Okay, here's what you found out after 2 hours of wandering through the saloons. This is the rumor you heard. And I might give them the quote in like Southern slang speech. Well, partner, here's what I found out, right? But we don't necessarily role play the dialogue like acting. And so I don't know what's going to happen here, if we're going to get ambushed or what. So we're just going to do our best and hope. that we can pound this guy. Is he not able to fight back? Because if he's not, that's super boring, and I don't know what the point of this is. If he can't fight back, that's dumb. Anyway, your goal shouldn't be to be a top internet GM. Like a top GM, I don't even know what that means. What you should try to be is a good GM for your group. A GM that your players like playing in your adventures, right? You make up adventures they like, you give them content they like, you do what they enjoy, and if you do those things, you are a good GM for your players, and it doesn't really matter if you were quote-unquote a top GM or not. So far this is a pointless mission, and I'm not sure why they bothered with this. So then let's talk about, okay, well, what traits does he say would make you a top GM or a good GM? And although his traits are okay, I don't actually agree with these. Right? The first trait he says is that you need to have the trait of, and this is weird because this doesn't seem like a trait to me. To me, a trait is like thoughtfulness or integrity or whatever. And he said the first trait is understanding how pacing works and being able to do good pacing. This war is barbaric. Some people believe we have lost our way by joining forces with the resistance, but the decision was not their choice to make. My wisdom is not as profound as my master's. What do you wish me to do? Report back to Richard Jones. What a dumb mission. I mean, you could have just talked to him and chosen the option, beat him to smithereens, and say okay, and it would have wasted a lot less time. So anyway, I don't feel like, first of all, that understanding pacing is really a trait. That sounds more like a skill. I mean, I guess, in Savage World, skills are types of traits, but like, it's not like you're born understanding pacing. It's not a characteristic it's something you can learn, right? And it's knowledge you can get, but I don't know that it's like a trait or a personality trait, right? Understanding pacing isn't a personality trait. It's just something you can do, right? You can learn it. So that's his first thing. And he said the reason is that you want to be able to properly alternate the pillars, right? Exploration versus social versus combat. He said the adventure should be like a roller coaster with ups and downs. I don't necessarily disagree with those things, but I don't think you need to have that as a trait, as one of the two top traits that would make you a good GM. Yeah, I mean, if you don't understand pacing, the adventure could get boring, but I feel like that's something you could learn fairly easily, and most of the time, the way the game system works, it sort of lends itself to that, because you're going to have a period of combat, you're going to have a period of exploring the room after combat, the players will start interacting with each other and doing role play. There may be an NPC they have to talk to. I mean, kind of by its very nature, the game is designed to make you do these things. All role-playing games, right? And so you have to actually kind of work to get bad pacing, because generally the way most games are structured, like Savage World is a dramatic task, social conflict, combat, as long as you say I'm going to try to, what's the other thing? Quick encounters, as long as you say I'm going to try to throw some of these into each adventure, you'll have decent pacing. So I mean, although I think it is good to have an understanding of pacing, as a game master, I wouldn't put that in the top two. And that was his number one, and I really wouldn't agree with putting that at number one. So I agree it's good to understand pacing, but I don't think that that's anywhere near the most important thing. Okay, so what did you learn? Who is Jones' boss? Tub Tsi Tong, I think is how you would say that. But that man has been dead for years. Mister Eclipse are moving into very dangerous territory. Available missions, and there's a finale. And true to many of the contacts in this game, they do not give you the option to buy inspirations from these contacts, which is incredibly frustrating. So I'm going back to the base so that I can buy inspirations from the nurse. And thankfully we have a base, because if we didn't, I wouldn't be able to buy inspirations here, and I'd have to go to a different zone, which is like really frustrating. And I don't know why they did that. My guess is this is something that the Homecoming guys didn't realize. If they did, they'd probably fix it, because they seem to be wanting us to be able to, you know, kind of buy our stuff from whoever we talk to. But anyway, fortunately we have a base, and we can just talk to the nurse, and we can sell some stuff while we're here. And we don't need that. And then we will pick up, let's see, we want a yellow, we want another green. This is what I've been running with. Nope, wrong thing. Another green. 3 Lux. And double break freeze. Always have an extra one for insurance. Okay, now we can go to the mission. So I don't necessarily agree with that. And I want to point out that what I'm going to do is reference a previous episode of mine, and I'll point that out when we get there. But let's talk about his second trait. I like this a little more. This is a trait. This is, I don't know, we'd say I guess you're kind of born with this or not as a personality trait, although obviously people can change over time, right? But this one is curiosity. And it's not one I would have thought of initially, and I think he has some good reasons for saying curiosity. So what he says is, if you're curious about what's going to happen next, right? If you're curious about what's going to happen next, you are more likely to, as a GM, provide a more open-ended stuff for your players, and it'll be less of a railroad, because with a railroad, you know what's going to happen at every stage along the way. If you're curious about what's going to happen, if you like the idea of not knowing what's going to happen, you're much less likely to generate a railroad. And so I think it's probably true. For me, I know, like, I remember saying to my players, one of the things that made me most want to play the horror at Headstone Hill, which is what my group is doing right now, one of the things that most made me want to play that was the picture, the artwork from the Flair piano, and the encounter where they were going to be fighting this piano that kind of works a little like a mimic. And in fact, when it showed up, one of the players was like, "This is the wrong game," or something like that, wrong setting, because they thought it was a mimic. It's not a mimic. It was a normal piano, and the power of the evil Headstone Nugget, which is this giant piece of ghost rock sitting in the basement, is turning the whole house kind of evil. And so little by little, the house is kind of getting weirder and weirder, and that's because of this Headstone Nugget. And so, but when I saw the artwork, I was like, I really can't wait to see how the players react to this and what happens. I was really curious at what point they were going to end up encountering the Flair piano. And you know, it was really cool because they rented the house, which was optional. They didn't have to do that, but they chose to. Right, I'm going to take stealth off because it's using too much endurance. So they rented the house, they walked through the house, and they did not go into the living room at first. They went everywhere else, right? And they were about to go down to the basement, and I was like, so this is one where I want to know what happens when they go down the basement. There were Manitous down there, but I didn't want them going down. It was getting late in the session. We had about an hour left. I didn't want them going down there, mostly because we were missing a player, and that's really kind of where the next part of the story triggers. That's where the Headstone Nugget is hidden, and I really felt like she should be there for that part. So I just said, you hear some music, like piano music, coming from the living room, right? And the piano had just started itself up. Is this an ambush? Or did I accidentally aggro somebody? And the reason I did that, rather than just letting them go down the basement, was not because I wasn't curious, but because I was just trying to control the pacing, I guess. But yeah, so I had the piano start playing, and then they went in and investigated it, and it attacked them. And I was very curious what's going to happen when they encounter this thing. I was very excited to have them. Yeah, this has got to be an ambush. I was very excited to have them encounter this thing and see what they make of it, right? And I told them that. I was like, I was super excited about that, and I wanted to have that happen. And then I was saying in a previous episode that that same session, one of the players had talked about going to the barber, and I mentioned how the barber is actually a guy who, he's a dentist slash barber, and what he actually does is he's got this barber chair. It's actually when he does it as a dentist, but he has, if you go in to get your tooth pulled, what he'll do is he'll give you a laudanum, which is a sedative, knock you out, and then while you're knocked out, he pulls a lever, and the barber chair drops you down into a chute, and underneath it are some cultists, and they hog tie you, and take you out to their barn out in the woods, where they sacrifice you and turn you into a replicant for the evil Aspen. And I said, I'm very curious what's going to happen when this guy goes to the barber, because I thought they did it to you when you went for a haircut, but they actually do it. I think it's actually really meant to be done if you go in for a dental treatment, right? So at some point, I may have somebody who's trying to convince the players to go into the barbershop and get taken by the cult. I may have somebody say, "Oh, you know, it looks like you got a little bit of something on your teeth. You might want to have the dentist check that out," and see what happens. But yeah, I'm curious what would happen, how they would react if somebody got dumped down that chute and people showed up to try and hog tie them. Obviously, we have to run some sort of a combat or a skill challenge or dramatic task or something. And yeah, I'm curious what they would make of that, right? So I agree with him. It's good to have curiosity. It's an important trait to have as a GM, because it makes you want to run adventures, because you want to see what's going to happen, right? And that's a good thing. But again, I'm not sure I would put that in the top 2. And I'll refer everybody to comment that one of my best players, like really awesome player made, when I can't remember what happened when we were talking about, like, I think they were, it was when we were getting toward the end of my my D&D campaign. I can't remember what happened where he said, "Look," he said, "just let's lay our cards on the table. I love the idea of the, like sort of the ideal of the sandbox as much as anybody else, but," he said, "I'm totally down with a railroad if it's easier for you to do a railroad, and as long as it's fun, and this has been fun." So he's like, I don't mind if it's a little railroady. I just want I want to enjoy the adventures, and I have been enjoying them. So, it's okay if you want to railroad us, right? And so his position was, I'm okay with a railroad. I'd rather have a good railroad than a bad sandbox, right? So, different people feel differently about this, and that's why I say it's important to know your group. But if you have a group like that is perfectly fine with a really enjoyable railroad, then you don't have to necessarily have that curiosity. I was watching this pair of older GMs. I was actually invited to go on their podcast, and I never got back to the guy. I feel bad. I said I'll let you know, and then I watched. He said watch a couple of our podcasts, and I watched them, and I never really got back to him. Yeah, I wasn't sure about it, because I have this feeling we very much disagree about certain things, like the quality of 5e as a game and stuff. And I don't know if they really wanted argument because they seem to agree with each other a lot. But one of the things they talked about that I actually liked is they talked about how they talked about the like how a roller coaster is a literal railroad, right? It's literally on rails. It can't go off the rails in a different direction. If it does, it's a malfunction and people can get hurt. And yet most people consider roller coasters to be like the most exciting ride you can go on, right? Or even something like one of these free fall drops, right? It just goes up and down, and yet you know where it's going to go. You know what it's going to do. It has a pattern of drops. And some of them are randomized, but the older ones, the pattern was fixed, and people still found them exciting, even though if you've been on the ride a couple times, you know what the pattern is, right? Because it's still got some level of excitement to it, because of the actual what's happening is exciting, right? Even if you know what's coming next. And so so I would argue that given that, although curiosity is great and it can definitely help you to be excited about what's going to come next because you don't know, right? And if you like that kind of thing, it's going to make it fun for you to see what the players do next. I'm not sure I would necessarily put that in my top 2 traits either. So I think both of those things are important, but I don't think they're the keys to being a good GM for your group. So that begs the question, Scrapper, what do you think are the keys to being a good GM for the group? And I will refer you, although I didn't necessarily say it the way I'm going to say it now. I just rewatched it. I remember talking about this a long time ago. I will refer you to Quintessence Lass, The Rebirth Brute, Season 5, Episode 16, starting around the 15-minute mark. I had been watching a Trevor Duvall live stream, and somebody had asked him about like GMing and what it takes to GM, and he had said GMing is a skill. Not everybody has it, but because it's a skill, it can be learned. And what I argued in my response to that comment was that although I think there are important skills like pacing that help you be a good game master, what makes a good game master isn't necessarily your skill at any of these things, particularly skill at the game, right? Here's another ambush. We're going to go down the elevator. Hopefully the ambush follows us and the other guys don't. We'll see what happens. Your skill at the game may or may not have your skill at the game is important. Oh, I did the wrong thing there. I should have done this first. Your skill at the game is important. Your skill with things like pacing is important. What are you doing? You shouldn't be attacking me. You're mind control. Why is he attacking me? He's mind control. So your skills are important, but what I said is temperament is much more important. Right? Temperament is important because if you don't have the right temperament to be a GM, all the skill in the world with pacing, all the curiosity in the world isn't going to help you. So what did I say you need to have temperamentally as a GM? And I didn't say it in these exact words, but like you can summarize it with, you need to have the capability of having vicarious enjoyment, right? I used the analogy of when I was a kid, I told my mom I don't understand how adults could enjoy Christmas because they don't get to get toys, right? And really adults don't care what presents. They can buy whatever it is that they bought for each other, they can buy for themselves most of the time, right? Sometimes it's something you wouldn't buy for yourself. You could afford it, but it's not the sort of thing you treat yourself to, so the person treats you to it, right? Because I know you'd never buy this for yourself. But most of the time, you know, as adults, when I buy something for my sister, I know she can buy it for herself. When she buys something for me, like she buys me a nice new sweatshirt, well, she knows I can afford a sweatshirt, right? Oh, what's going on here? Oh, boy. Okay. Domination time. See, I saved it up, and I got it. There we go. Double boss? A double boss ambush. Are you kidding me? City of Heroes Gold Side. That is absolutely ridiculous. Fortunately, we had domination up, or we would have lost this fight. Let's try to do a little extra damage. So what I said in that episode is you have to be someone who gets enjoyment out of making other people have fun, right? Matt Colville said at the end of a session, his players asked him, Matt, did you have fun? And he said, well, did you guys have fun? And like, oh yeah, we had a ball. He's like, well, then I had fun. And they're like, but that's not an answer, right? What do you mean you had fun if we had fun? Like, we're asking you, did you have fun yourself? And we've leveled up. Would have been nice if we'd done that before we got ambushed. Man, it's a good thing I didn't try to come up the stairs. I would have had to I would have aggroed these guys while being ambushed. Yikes. Brutal, brutal difficulty on these things for a Dominator, I have to say. So yeah, he said. So they wanted him to like objectively like have fun in like for his own like on his own, right? Another ambush. And he said, well, you have to understand as a GM, right? Your goal is to make it fun for other people, right? For the players. And so, you know, he said, yeah, if you guys had fun, then I had fun, right? You enjoy seeing your players have fun. When I'm playing Savage Worlds and somebody like my best friend to hit the flare piano, like his first shot, like I think maybe he shook it, but he did it like it had really high toughness. So, and we'll wait for the next ambush. It had a really nice toughness, a really high toughness, 13 or something. So he shot it and he did like 14. I said it's shaken, and like wow, right? And they'd hit it a couple other times and done 8 or 10 damage and done nothing. So like this thing is really tough. Then he fires his second shot because he has a double action revolver, so he took 2 shots, and he fired his second shot, and he rolled like 38. He just aced and then aced again and then aced again. And the other 2 players and I were like, yeah, that's awesome. And they were cheering and everything, right? They're in that moment, they are having fun, right? That's you can see it. And as a GM, I'm like, okay, they're enjoying this. They're having fun, right? So that's all that matters. Did they have fun? Yep. Then I'm happy. And so now, obviously, you know, like I always say, I need to have fun too. But a big part of GMing is enjoying your players' enjoyment, right? So I remember my best friend, when he was GMing, he got frustrated with me because he sensed. Oh boy, wrong thing. Did the wrong thing there. He sensed that I was maybe a little bit bored in parts of it, trying to not to aggro the other group. And he was like, how is it going? And I said, you know, I'm enjoying it. It's fine. He's like, really? You know, is there something I could do to make it better for you? What would you like me to do? And I said, you're doing everything. It's fine. There's no problem, right? But he said, you seem bored. Now, I wasn't bored. I was bored during some of the combats. Oh man, these spawns are so close to each other that you can't even move. I was bored in one or two of the combats just because it was too big, and it was taking too long to get back around to my turn, and I was just sitting there waiting for a lot of it. And even then, I registered that it was a tactically interesting battle that he had set up. It was just that it got away from him, and this happens as a GM sometimes. It got away from him, and it got a little out of control, and as a consequence, it made it less exciting than it otherwise would have been, just simply because it was a little too big. And part of that wasn't his fault. He had planned a smaller battle because the one girl was moving to Finland, and then she got back earlier than she had predicted, and as a consequence, he had an extra character in the battle that he didn't expect to have, and that made it harder for him. Like, he added more, you know, bad guys to the battle than he had originally planned, right? He had them, like, it was zombies, and they, like, came up out of the graves and stuff. And, like, the reason he did that was because we had an extra player, right? And so he was trying to balance it out. It didn't necessarily work perfectly, but that, you know, that happens as a GM. But again, he was His concern was, are you guys having fun? Right? Not am I having fun, but are you guys having fun? And during the sessions that that went well, he was much happier. I remember him saying, we spent a bunch of time in a tavern just role playing and talking to each other, and he said, I wasn't expecting that to take so long. He said, but because you guys seem to be having fun, I just let it go, right? A lot longer than I intended. You know, he was going to move it along, and he's like, now they're having fun with the, you know, like just chatting with each other, so I'm just going to let it go, right? Again, that's a GM trait. You're somebody who's watching what the players are doing. You're seeing that they're having fun with something, and you do more of that and less of the thing they don't have fun with, right? And that's if you're someone who wants to give other people fun and someone who genuinely gets enjoyment out of giving enjoyment to other people, that will make you a great GM. Not a top internet GM, but a good GM for your group, right? Because giving them what they want might not be interesting to watch from the internet perspective, right? With my players, there's a lot of like thinking, and it's very cerebral type of a game. They like that, right? Even the battles are very tactical and everything. They like that, but it's probably not. It probably wouldn't be super fun to watch, right? And I don't care if it would be fun to watch. I'm giving them what they like, right? And if I can tell that they're enjoying it, then that's it. And then I'm having fun too. So the sessions that I've enjoyed the most are the sessions where they seem to be having an absolute blast, right? And if they're having a blast, then I'm having a blast. It's just how it works as a GM. And so I would say the number one trait you have to be a good GM for your group is to be someone who experiences vicarious enjoyment. You enjoy giving enjoyment to other people. That you cannot fail to be a good GM, right? Whatever skills, you'll learn them. Whatever thing, you'll do it. If your players like railroad, you do a railroad. If your players like sandbox, it won't happen overnight because it will take trial and error and time and effort to learn what your players like, right? But if you're someone who genuinely enjoys giving enjoyment to other people, you almost cannot help but be a good GM, because that's what good GMs do, right? And if you watch these other shows like Critical Role or the Wild Cards ETU game or something, you watch the GMs. I missed that guy twice in a row. Watch the GMs. Watch Jordan Caves Callman. Watch Matt Mercer. Watch Brennan Lee Mulligan. Right? Don't. You know, if you really want to see how this works, don't pay too much attention to what's going on story-wise in the episode. Don't pay too much attention to that. Right? Pay attention to how the GM reacts to what the players are doing. And you sometimes you have to watch multiple episodes, and you will see that as the GM recognizes enjoyment in their players of doing certain activities and having certain things happen, they happen more, right? The GM is constantly monitoring, and there's the boss, and he's going to be pretty easy because he's a yellow, but we'll go ahead and pop Domination and Break Free and a couple lucks. And one of these, and we'll hold the boss. And we'll hypnotize one of these guys, and he's dominated, so it'll take a while, and then let's immobilize these guys, and then we can AoE them, and we'll re-up the boss. So I would say the first and most important thing for a GM is you have to be somebody who gets enjoyment out of giving enjoyment to other people. If you have that, you kind of don't need anything else, because all of the rest of it will just come automatically to you, because someone who is getting enjoyment out of giving enjoyment to other people will naturally gravitate toward doing the things their players like, right? As opposed to if you're somebody who's just trying to please yourself, right, then you're not going to gravitate toward what your players like. You're going to gravitate toward what you like, right? And then it probably won't be as much fun, right? So that's where I would say that's what I would say is the most important trait. Tong offered you a chance to die with honor. Why did you refuse? There was more at stake than your honor. Yin threw his lot in with your kind. This has got to be Penelope Yin's father in this world. Mr. Yin was the head of the syndicate. It's so hard to believe. Mr. Eclipse, the CEO of the Incorporation, the largest mega corporation. So this is really annoying. If he's going to fight me again, I'm going to be really annoyed because this conversation caused me to lose my domination. So he's working for his daughter, and Penelope is missing. Goodbye. Okay. So it did make me fight him again. All right, not so bad. So anyway, the number one thing I would say is vicarious enjoyment. Related to this is a second trait that I would say you need to have, and this is going to sound weird, right? Because the GM is the boss of the game, right? They're kind of the leader of the group, right? They tell you what's going to happen. They're, you know, sort of, I've heard somebody describe it almost like a benevolent dictator. Although I wouldn't describe it that way, I would say one of the most important, of the other really important trait as a GM is to have a team player mentality, right? You have to, if you think about the group as a team and you're trying to be like the leader of a really good team, that team player mentality is what will help you be a good GM because it's cooperative, right? How do we work together to, as a team, to build a good session? If you and your players all have that team mentality, it'll be a good session. But the GM has to have that, right? If the GM doesn't do the game as a teamwork exercise, but instead more like a dictator, you will not have as good of a session. This guy still has available missions. Oh, we still have a finale. I thought we just did the finale, didn't we? It's weird. Okay, so we're going to raid the Incorp. Oh, this is a single player, whatchamacallit. And, of course, he doesn't have inspirations. So I will pause it, and I'll bring you back when I've gotten inspirations from the base. So I brought you back while we're in the base. I just wanted to show you guys this. We've got a couple oranges. I've now collected 32 orange salvage, but there are 30 in here beforehand. I think some of them came from Silver Phoenix. I believe there were about 24 that came from Liberty Lass, and she used a few. It feels like over the course of the 50 levels I collected about 30. So if you just want to have a sense of, if you're just playing the way I do and you want to know, how many oranges will you pick up over the course of just regular play, it's probably somewhere around 30. Oh my gosh, we have almost full on yellows as well. I'm going to need to get another yellow salvage rack. I'm going to have to redecorate this part of the base, I think. That is full. There's another rack over here for more whites, and that is full. Oh gosh, okay, so that's all Silver Phoenix and Liberty Lass's fault. I will keep the whites in the vault because we don't need to do any inventing for, another 15 levels. I also need to level up before I go into this mission. It doesn't matter too much on the odd levels because we're not getting a new power and we don't really have any enhancements to add to enhancement slots, but we can go ahead and level up. But yeah, I just wanted you guys to see how many. So we have 4 completely full racks of white salvage, 2 completely full racks of yellow salvage, and about 1/3 of a rack of orange. And most of all my characters also have completely full vaults, except this one. Okay, so back to teamwork. Yeah, I think that, again, we talk about how role-playing games are cooperative storytelling experiences, right? Yes, there are game mechanics, and they're sort of like war games and everything, but the fundamental nature of a role-playing game is that you're sitting around together, and what you're trying to do as a group, using the rules and your house rules of your group, and the traditions that your group has built up over the years, and the style that your group likes and everything, which you figured out by playing with each other together for a while, right? What you're doing is you're getting together and you're telling a story that only happens with your group. Matt Colville has this great, why we play D&D, and it really should be why we play role-playing games. It's why do we play D&D? And I urge you, it's like his 11th or 12th episode, I think, of his running the game, and he tells this really cool story about how he had one group, and then they stopped playing, and then he created another group, and they were playing in the same world, and there's this really fun trick that one of the players plays on all the other players, and it was this awesome epic story. The players are involved in the telling of the story because he puts a camera on them, and they're all grinning ear to ear as they're telling the story. They loved this. And what he said was that story could only happen at my table, and it could only happen by playing a game like D&D, right? That story is something they'll be telling their children and their grandchildren and other role players, and they'll talk to each other about it for years. That's what you're doing. You're cooperating, right? They do it together and collaborate together. So if you have a teamwork mentality, then that will make the game better because you're working together with your players. Okay, so I knew I wanted to finish stamina. We'll do health as we go up in levels. I need to get everything slotted here, but this one's finished. So let's try to finish Dark Grasp, because we can get more hold durations and stuff on it too as we go. And now let's go for our mission. So yeah, I would say if you want two traits that are I don't know if you can learn them, right? If you don't have them already as a person, it's sort of like honesty, right? If you're not an honest person, you're going to have to really work on yourself to become more honest, right? If you're inherently, you just lie all the time and everything, it's not a skill being honest, it's a personality trait, and if you don't have it, you kind of have to work on yourself, right? And I would say similarly, if you don't have a teamwork mentality, if you don't have a cooperative nature, I do, so I didn't have trouble with this. It's something you're going to have to work on yourself, right? And so, yeah, again, I don't know how good stealth is going to work for us because we might get ambushed. But here we go. But that's a trait, right? And then the other trait that I think is very important and is related to it is the idea of the vicarious enjoyment, getting enjoyment from making things fun for other people. By the way, the reason my group is so good is that they also gain enjoyment from making things fun for each other and for me, right? That's how we end up being a really good team, because we all cooperate really well and we care that the other people are having fun too, and we try to contribute to the fun that other people are having, right? And if you're sitting around a table with, you know, a GM and 4 players, so there's 5 people around the table, and all 5 of them are focused on trying to make sure the other people have fun, you're going to have tons of fun too, right? Because there's 4 people besides you at the table trying to trying to help you have fun, right? And so each person is sort of transmitting the fun as one person, but they're getting the fun transmitted to them by 4 people. It's 4 times as much fun. And you just have to have that mentality and realize that that's the way to have fun as in a role-playing game, is to do what other people like and trust. You have to have the right group. You have to trust that they will try to do what you like. And if you're all doing that together, man, it's nothing better than that. It's one of the most fun. It's the reason role-playing games have lasted so long. It's one of the most fun social interactions you can have as a human being, is to be with a group of people who are as focused on helping you have fun as you are on helping them have fun, and you're all helping each other have fun. And when you do it together, as I say, there's so much more fun coming in your direction than going out, because there are more people at the table than there are of you, right? That it's just so amazing. And you know, I don't know if words can convey it. And I think one of the reasons that Critical Role and some of these other shows have become such hits is it is obvious to everyone watching, but I don't know if it's on a conscious level. I think it seeps in unconsciously. These people are having a blast with each other, and they're helping each other have fun. And watching people having fun, that much fun together, is fun to watch, right? And now they're giving you fun too. And once they realize it's a show and that they have fans and everything, they also, to a certain degree, started trying to do things on the show that would be fun for their audience to watch. And if you watch them do live shows, they're purposely trying to make it fun for the audience too. Now, I don't know that that's a good example for everyone to play D&D around the table, because you don't have an audience and you shouldn't be doing those sorts of things. But if you recognize that what these folks are doing is concentrating on giving fun to each other, and you see how much fun they all have at the table when they're doing that, right? There's a level of selflessness involved both for the GM and the other players. And if you can get into that mindset and get out of the idea that you want to get what you want out of the game and more say, how can I help my friends get what they want out of the game? If you can trust them to feel the same way about you, again, you're going to have way more fun coming in your direction from all the other players than you're pushing out, right? And it's just amazing. And that's, I think, why that's what you need as a GM, right? You need that sense of giving other people fun and being cooperative. And if you have those two traits, all the rest of it will kind of happen naturally, right? So sort of automatically. Let's see if we can pull these guys back so he starts attacking them. Now, I do think, curiosity certainly can help, but again, I wouldn't put it in the top two, right? My top two are vicarious enjoyment, basically enjoying giving other people enjoyment, and teamwork. And if you've got those two traits, I think you cannot help but be a good GM. Does it mean you're going to know all the rules? No. But you'll try to learn the rules. Because you know that you knowing the rules helps everybody have fun, and you're trying to help everybody have fun. Right? Does it mean you're always going to give a sandbox versus a railroad? Doesn't matter. Right? Because what you're doing is you're monitoring whether your players are having fun or not, and if you see them having fun, you do more of that. And so you'll naturally gravitate toward what they like. Now, this stuff isn't instantaneous, right? You can't read a book and suddenly become a good GM this way. But if you have that mindset, if you have that temperament of helping other people have fun and of being a team player, then I think just over time you will naturally develop as you need to be a really good GM for your group. So that's my take. What's your take? What do you guys think? Do you agree with me that the most important things are enjoying the fun of others and being a team player, which I feel like are kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Because again, being a team player is about caring about other people, right? And sometimes subordinating your own personal preferences to the group. Again, trusting that other people in the group will do the same in exchange, and there will be more times when things are coming your way than going out, right? Do you agree with that, or do you think the other person is correct that the two ways to be a good GM are to understand pacing and be curious? I feel like both. I'm not, by the way, poo-pooing either of those things. I think that as a good GM, at some point you need to start to have an understanding of pacing so that you can make the game, interesting and engaging, but not. You can't. He points out in the video, tension and suspense are great, but you can't just have nonstop tension and suspense because people need a break. I always remember there was a book that I didn't like, actually, called something like Writing with Tension and Conflict. And I feel like there were a lot of problems with that book, and the writer was very biased about what you should write based on literally her taste. Like, I like writing novels like this, so you should try to write novels like this. And she was basically an erotic fiction writer, and so what she was really like a romance novelist, and so what she was really doing was giving you good advice for writing romance novels. But one of the things she did say in there that I think is really good is that she calls it like the scene and sequel mechanic, where you have the scene of tension and then you have the sequel where you release the tension, right? It can't just all be tension, right? Think of Star Wars. There's a big battle when they leave the Death Star where they fight TIE fighters, but then after that they relax and they talk, right? So you have to have some sort of a tension release before you get to the next tense scene. If it's all just tense all the time, then you get like immune to the tension, right? You acclimate to it, like a funny smell, and you acclimate to a smell, right? You acclimate to the tension, and then it's not tense anymore. So you want to spike the tension. Okay, there's a combat, it's tense, and then reduce the tension back down after the combat, have some conversation, shopping, looting, whatever, and then something happens and you spike the tension back up so that it goes up and down, right? And so I think it is really important, and I don't know why the dialogue's not showing up here. It's some sort of a bug. Um, we are going to be loyalists, so we're going to arrest them. And I have domination, thankfully, and he is an elite boss, so we'll try to hold him. Oh gosh, we have another boss. Let's see if we can... 2 elite bosses against me? I don't know how you're supposed to be. 2 red-conning elite bosses. Wow. Great. I missed him. So we'll keep one of them held. And I'm going to try to... Oops. I'm going to try to do mind control on the other one and see if he can help me fight the boss. But the problem is I missed. So I've got to hit him over and over again, because if I don't... yeah, honestly, I don't know if I can win this fight. Yeah, as soon as I miss, and I've got 2... I've got 2 accuracies running, they're going to fade eventually. It's going to take me so long to beat these guys. Yeah, the only chance I have is if the one helps me beat the other one. See, as soon as I miss, I'm screwed. Throw another break free. Yep, as soon as I miss, I'm screwed. I'm not sure how I'm going to win this fight. Yep, I'm dead. Well, guys, this may be an autocomplete, because I don't think I can win it. I mean, it looks okay now, but once the domination runs out, I will lose. Yeah, see, I have no chance. I cannot fight 2 elite bosses. It's not possible. With this level... Yeah. So they got me, right? I have to flee. And I'll probably die. And I don't know how you win. So I think I'm actually going to go out and autocomplete it. I don't think it's possible to win this fight. I don't see how I can win it. Right? Because you have to be under domination to control either one of them, and there's 2 elite bosses. I'm just going to bail. I feel bad about doing that, but I also think this is an incredibly unfair scenario. You can't even bring backup, right? And like heavy pistol, that's not going to do anything. Chain gun, that doesn't do anything. I don't have any other abilities, right? And it's not like it tells you to do anything else. So I'm going to have to bail, I guess. I mean, I don't have domination now. There's no way to build it back up. And they're going to be fully healed when I go back in. So I'm not able to complete this mission, and I'm just going to bail on it. I think it's been 3 days. Who want a tougher fight? You can call off the PPD. Where are the reinforcements? Oh. I screwed up, didn't I? Alright, let me fix it. Okay, so read the mission text. I shouldn't have clicked the glowy, right? I just automatically click all glowies. The glowy called off the reinforcements with the cops. So the cops will come in to help me. And that should be okay. I guess I should have gotten more inspirations, but we'll pick some up as we go. Yeah, there's a glowy and I just automatically clicked it. It really should have brought up a pop-up or something that said, "Are you sure you want to call off the PPD?" Because there's obviously no way a Dominator could solo 2 elite red bosses. Like, that's insane. Alright, so in fact, since I'm right by the door, I'm going to pause it here. Let me go back to the base and grab some inspirations, and I'll bring you back. I forgot my tray was empty. Alright, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Obviously, being a bonehead, not reading the mission text. Yeah, I don't know who the heck. Post in the comments if you've ever done this mission solo and beaten 2 red bosses at level 15 or so. Right, you might be level 16 or 14 or whatever when you're doing this, but you fought 2 red bosses and you were able to solo them. Because even, I mean, like, I could solo 2 red elite bosses, not regular bosses, elite bosses. Have you done this mission solo without the police like that and actually succeeded at it on one try, right, or at all? You know, as a scrapper, I could take 2 elite bosses in high level, you know, when I'm like 38. But I don't think I could take 2 elite bosses like Silver Phoenix before Elude. There's no way, right? So certainly at 15th level, she couldn't have done it. At 15th level, she wouldn't have had enough endurance to run both of her melee and range toggles, right? Because she didn't have stamina. You know, you don't have single origins yet, right? I don't know who they're kidding. Like, who the heck could possibly win at level 15 against double red elite bosses by yourself? Maybe I mean, like, even a mastermind, right? I was going to say maybe a mastermind, but you don't have your high level pet yet. Those guys would shred a low level pet. They just destroy them. Right? At 15th level, all you'd have is like, what, 2 minions and 1 lieutenant pet? The elite bosses would like one-shot the minions. And the lieutenant would go down in 3 or 4 hits. So I don't know how a mastermind would do it. Blasters, you know. Controllers don't need domination, but I don't think they're more powerful than a Dominator enough with their control that they could lock down 2 different elite bosses. I think that would be extremely hard to do. You guys, if anybody's done that one solo, post in the comments below. I will salute you. Because I have no idea. You know, again, I could solo a pair of elite bosses, no problem, with, you know, Liberty Last now, with Quintessence Last, you know, at level 40, at level 38, sure. But at level 15 or 14 or 16, when you don't even have most of your powers slotted or even in, right? I don't know how you would do it. I mean, I guess if you have enough reward merits on another character and you've managed to put ATOs on, like, if I had this and this double 6 slotted and I had the 2 ATOs already on them, maybe, but you'd have to know to prep that way, right? You'd have to know that you need those slots now because you're going to come into this mission. Otherwise, you might not put all those slots on that early. I mean, like, I don't know how people do it with their builds, but you might not put all those slots in that early just because you don't need it yet, right? It's only level 15. You can take almost anything at this level pretty easily. And then all of a sudden you come to 2 elite bosses. Just brutal. So yeah, obviously it's meant for you to have the PPD come in and help you. I don't know what this is going to do in terms of the loyalist choice, if it's going to think I already made it. I'm not really sure. All right, I logged off and logged back in, so we've restarted the mission. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I might still have to auto-complete it, and if so, then that's entirely my fault because I didn't read the mission text. I was too busy talking to you guys about GMing. One person did make a note. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the last episode. I don't think I did. Somebody made a note in one of the comments that they're actually enjoying the first 2 episodes of the Dominator better because they feel like there's more tactics and strategy involved instead of the brute and the scrapper where you just run and punch. Now, I will say some of that's level based, right? Because if you go back and you watch Silver Phoenix or Quintessence Lass or Liberty Lass at low levels, I'm doing things like using the Trank Darts and stuff like that to pull from spawns, especially if you go back and look at how you do Vajilok at low level, right? Silver Phoenix, I'm doing a pull, beat one up, doing another pull, beat another guy up. So there is still some tactics involved, and then if you have like a disorient power, like with Liberty Lass, I had to do the tactics of hit this guy with the thing that juices up the disorient, and then throw the better disorient on him, and so on and so forth. But I mean, I think there's no question that you have to be more tactical as a Dominator. So now the PPD is hopefully going to come help me, because if they don't, I'm not going to be able to win this fight anyway. And I will just run from it. Because there is no way. Maybe a Dominator could take 2 elite bosses at higher level when you have pets helping you, but not now. And the pets, I don't have them because they haven't unlocked. It's not because I didn't take them yet. They have not unlocked yet. Okay, so we're doing low. Okay, there, the PPD is helping me. Okay, thanks, guys. These guys are bosses. All right, so let's do break free. Take a couple lucks in accuracy, and let's move in. Come on, guys. PPD, come on in. All right, let's go. Boom. Oh, got a trigger domination. Help me, guys. Help. Are you guys going to aggro or what? There we go. There we go. Put him on a hold. Do an AoE entangle. This will be much easier. He's pounding them, but they're also pounding him. There we go. Much easier. Received a message from Provost Marchand. Okay. Much, much easier. Reward merits, and we have finished the story arc. So yeah, it's a long episode, guys, and I'm sorry you had to watch that mission twice, but we were talking about interesting stuff, so hopefully it was entertaining. Okay, so he's got more missions for me. And we have this person who also should have missions for me. We're level 15. We're halfway to level 16 in our next power. My hope is that we might get Haunt at 16. I'm not sure when that unlocks. But then we can summon some shades, and that will be super helpful. And I'd like to get that early so we can slot that one up. And we definitely want Umbra Beast. And then Shadow Field is an AoE hold. We want that. So these are my 3 priorities. Eventually I want to get Heart of Darkness. Fearsome Stare is at the bottom of my list, because I've already got 2 single target holds that I can basically rotate. Now obviously a third one would mean I can lock 3 guys down in a 3-man spawn. That could be useful. So far I haven't really needed that, and I think with pets I probably won't. Obviously we also are going to want Gather Shadows, Engulfing Darkness, and all the Life Drain and all the rest of this stuff. I'm eventually going to propagate Midnight Grass, but all the range stuff has priority for me, and Smite and Midnight Grass will be at the very end, probably like in the 30s, because I'm really prioritizing this character to do more ranged attacks rather than melee attacks. We are level 15. I think we have 2 more contacts and 1 more zone in Praetoria before we switch to Paragon City. So we're going to continue many of these story arcs. I probably won't do every single one, but I'll do most of the Praetoria content as much as possible, since we haven't done that on the channel. And then when we get to Paragon City, I'll pick and choose when I've got something to rant about, like today. I mean, I wasn't going to actually film COH today, and then I saw that video pop up. I watched it, and I was like, okay, I want to make a rant about this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and leave comments below. What do you think are the 2 most important traits to be a good GM? You might come up with others than the 4 I mentioned, right? Do you agree that it's curiosity and pacing? Or do you agree that it's teamwork and vicarious fun and entertainment? Or do you think it's a combination of two of those or something completely different? Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll talk about it some more. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.